Welcome once again to Pandora's Ball. Perform live from the studio a nice little acoustic rendition of The Unforgiven by Metallica. Let's take it away, Drew. You will have never heard a version like this before. New blood joins this earth, and quickly he's subdued. Through constant pain, disgrace, the young boy learns their rules. With time the child draws in, this whipping boy down wrong, deprived of all his thoughts. The young man struggles on and on. He's known, oh, if I want to his own, to never from this day this will they'll take away. What I felt, what I've known, never shine through in what I've shown. Never be, never see, won't see what might have been. What I felt and what I've known, never shine through in what I've shown. I'm never free, I'm never me, so I'm dubbed the Unforgiven. They dedicate their lives to running all of his. He tries to please them all, this bitter man he is. Well, throughout his life of sin, he's battled constantly, but this fight he cannot win. A tired man they see no longer cares. Oh, the old man then prepares to die regretfully. The old man here is me. What I felt, what I've known, never shine through in what I've shown. Never be, never see, won't see what might have been, or what I felt, or what I've known. Never shine through in what I've shown. I'm never free, I'm never me, so I'm dubbed the unforgiven. Acoustic, but also electronic.
Yeah.
Version of Unforgiven.
Bit of piano on the go there as well.
I'll tell you why we started off this episode with that. Because we felt like it.
Yeah,
all
why
right?
not?
Not really
Why
any
not?
more complicated than that. There wasn't really a thought behind it. Just as we were getting set up, I was just sort of randomly playing that, and then we just thought we'll start the episode with it.
Reminiscing about a crazy jam we had at Calum's house the other day
With our
recently
Spanish
as
friend
well.
Carmen.
Spanish Carmen. Yeah, she was on the old windpipes. No, what was it? On a drone flute.
The drone flute, yeah. Isn't it like a South American recorder,
or like a Native American like flute. Yeah, so it's
Native
got like
American.
it's got two flutes built in one. One's got the scale on, and the other one's just a drone note. So you've always got that drone like E
that
or
makes
A
it
or
sound
whatever.
almost like quite like a
and then a pentatonic
almost
scale
like
on the other.
mystical.
Yeah,
doesn't
it? Yeah, definitely. It like always harmonizes with itself.
I loved that about it.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Super cool. It makes me want to get one.
I do love the concept or the idea of people stumbling across us on like TikTok or Instagram and just seeing us tell some like quick fire facts, then clicking on a video, being like, what? Yeah, or the radio, and just being like, you know what? I'll check them out. Let's see what they got to offer. Clicking on the video and just straight into the jam.
So fun just messing around
so
with it,
good.
isn't it?
Oh mate, yeah, you got.
We need to cut all these little clips up, and I know we were saying about doing a funny little album. We also need to just put them out as their own little videos. You know what I mean, like on TikTok and stuff.
I think all of the music stuff we do, we should just cut up and just release it as like little videos. Yeah, because they are just so. I mean, I love doing them.
Pandora's box music.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like, I mean, when we were like growing up, Drew, like, you know, messing around with guitars and learning it and that, I think a lot of, not to be fair, not that many people, but it's like, I think that sometimes you almost like almost maybe think like, is this a waste of my time doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, you can think of more like traditionally academic people in your class that might have just been like focusing on their studies where we weren't so much.
Just playing E chords.
Yeah, but now...
Yeah, it's all paying off.
Now what?
Now what? Now what you gonna say, brother?
Yeah, I just think it's like fun. It's just fun to be able to like just pick up an instrument and just do that.
Yeah.
Just have little jams, make up little stuff. It's like one of my, you know, it's just a lovely thing to do, isn't it? It's a lovely thing to do.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Spontaneity.
Spontaneous creativity.
Wow.
Yes.
That's what we like.
I should make a song called that. Spontaneous
Make a
creativity.
flipping album called that.
Oh, yeah, baby. I could imagine like loads of like almost like, you know, do you remember like back in the old school Windows player where you would listen to a CD or something and then it would like make weird patterns depending on like what was going on actually in the song?
On the screensaver.
I could imagine the front cover would be like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
My Mac does that now, and it's even it's like trippier. It's like this like they look like furry like things, and it's this pattern that keeps kind of morphing, but it's like this almost like furry. It reminds me of the thing that touched me when I was on acid.
Yeah.
When you used to have the Mac in the studio at the start of Pandora's box, you can probably watch back to like the older episodes, and it would be in front of me with the screensaver. And there was definitely so many occasions where we'd be like in a conversation, and I would just almost like get lost in lost in the furry waves.
I like the idea that it's like me and Drew are just halfway through something and then it just suddenly like drones out into like a little song and you're just like, and then it's like just in your head and you're just like.
Have you ever seen those crystals that are made? I think it's like crystals where there's these people I've seen which have machines where
crystal
they like,
butt plugs.
Well, maybe it could be used for that, I suppose.
Yoni egg.
But it's they would get like the sound wave for a song and just play it. and just play it
Meg's
on
got one of
the
those.
thing.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
Sorry, Meg, more like.
Yeah, they would have like a machine where they would just play the sound wave of a song through it, and this AI machine would like analyze this sound and then make a crystal based off what they believe the sound would make people feel.
A crystal.
And it's quite interesting.
That's quite cool.
Have you seen the machines that have been developed that you can stick on almost like paddles? Imagine like how someone's to check their heart and check their electromagnetics, and they have those
like
things,
pads,
pads all over their body. Like Wim Hof had them all on when they were doing testing, heating up his body temperature. They've done something with those where they can put them on plants or like clip them to plants, and then put the plant, connect it to this machine, and the plant will like choose like notes and stuff, and you can almost play music with the plant, and it's proper weird, and it's like
that's mental.
And you put it on different plants, and it's completely different sounds and mushrooms and stuff like that, and it's like it's cool. It's like basically saying that plants are conscious and they can actually choose what they actually want to put forward on it. It's like pretty cool.
That's really cool.
That's pretty cool, man. It's funny actually. I actually had one of those like tests done where they at like a hospital where they they put like freaking
pads on you.
Yeah, all over me. Yeah, it's because I can't remember if I ever told you about it, Drew. Basically, about like 5 years ago, I woke up from a really bad dream. Right. I can't even remember the bad dream, right? But I remember the stress of the bad dream, and it felt like I was having an electric shock.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, like seriously, but like physically, not like in my dream. Whoa. Like I woke up
when you first woke up.
Yeah. And it was like I'd never felt like it before, and it was
that
like
almost
dodgy.
feels like
what like
sleep paralysis.
No, so I was like, my body was my heart was beating super fast, and I was like having like an electric shock.
Whoa!
And I remember I went to the toilet, and I just was like, man, this feels freaking weird.
I remember you told me about this before. Actually, I remember you saying a bit about the bit when you went to the toilet and stuff, and you were like, looking
my
in
heart
the
was
mirror
like,
yeah,
and it was like weird. And I felt like
a panic attack,
and it felt like I was having an electric shock. Yeah, and then my mum was like, oh yeah, just go get it like checked out. Obviously, you just want to like be on the safe side of things. Like to be fair, my mum's like really good like that. She's not at all a hypochondriac or anything like that. She's like very calm, but she's just like, at the end of the day, there's no harm in getting anything chucked out, because I think a lot of people are either one way or the other. They're like, they go to the doctors for everything. It's like, I got a sore thumb, or it's like they get a headache, they think it's a brain tumor, and you've got
adrenal glands,
and then everybody knows people on the other end of things that like,
could be missing an arm and a leg and still be like,
or I just stitch it myself.
Or they could know something was like seriously up, but maybe a bit out of like the anxiety of
Meg's gran, who died like recently of cancer, like she
or
had,
a friend of ours mum as well.
Like,
a friend of ours mum
never went to the doctors once. And they found out after she passed that she was like totally riddled in cancer, but she never went to the doctors once. It's crazy.
Well, I know it wasn't exactly. I know it wasn't exactly the same, but we had a friend whose like mum was similar, wasn't it? God bless her soul, and it was like almost like the anxiety.
Of thinking about the operation.
Something's not right in you, but you get to the point where it's almost like too much to bear, and you're like, I'm just going to ignore it, regardless of what happens, even if you know it could potentially be fatal, which is mental. So anyway, mum's like, we'll go get checked out. It's always just good to go get checked out. At the end of the day, that's what freaking doctors are there for, and that. And
that's why you pay your taxes.
So I went to my GP, and I was like, and like, I had this like mental feeling and stuff, and he was like, oh, okay, well we'll get you like, I think he said like an ECG, and then it was like but it was also like they do like a running test. Right, so they put you they put me on a treadmill in just like a pair of shorts and trainers, so because they obviously have to for all the pads and everything, and I just basically just run as long as you can, and then basically they're like hitting all this information from your heart, and basically they said that like I was absolutely fine, and they actually said, I was actually pretty proud of this. Obviously, they said that like out of everybody whose tests they'd done that year in Musgrave,
you healthy, baby.
They said I was like the best one. They said I was like the fittest, healthiest person from all the heart stuff, which I was really obviously glad about. But they said that what I'd obviously had was like a super traumatic episode in my sleep.
Whoa.
And it basically, that's what, because you don't really think about it, but we are basically all have like electrical charges, and your heart is like your ticker is like the main thing that's like connected to all that electricity in your body. I know that some people, and I don't know if it's like something weird with me a little bit, but sometimes when I'm taking my top off in the dark, I see static electricity, like sparks off my body. And I don't know if it's like something weird with me. You know how we've talked a little bit about,
it's electric.
Yeah. Like genetic mutations and that. Obviously, I'm not saying that's a genetic mutation, but it's like almost like maybe there's something.
You are electro.
There's something going on with the electricity in my body that's maybe is a bit more than other people's or something. I don't
Your
know.
electromagnetic field is off the chain.
I'm Electro Man. But anyway, that's the feeling I had when I woke up. And they basically said that I'd obviously had this traumatic incident when I was asleep, and they said that sometimes it can kick your heart into like overdrive, and that's what must have happened because of the way I described my heart beating, and it felt like it was like going to beat through my chest. It felt, because I'd never experienced anything like that. I thought like, am I having a heart attack? Or something like that. That's what I thought. And I was like, I didn't think I was. But you know, sometimes because you just know you're so ignorant about something, you're like, man, I wouldn't even know if I was. But I know whatever's going on, this is like not normal.
Yeah, this is weird.
Can you remember the dream you were having that set you into this?
That's the weird thing.
That's the weird thing.
But I remember waking up and I was like sweating and my heart was like yeah. It wasn't like
very rarely I have dreams like that. Sometimes I have, and it is crazy how you have sweated so much and everything, and you're like you're physically like
yeah, man.
I remember like the last time that happened, I felt like some weird like electric-y like thing that was like, I remember I first woke up, but for me it always feels like there's like a ghost in the room or something, and it's almost like a bit of a weird feeling like that.
I think that almost makes sense. It's all like linked to like, because your brain's so haywire in your sleeping and everything like that, with all the freaking DMT that's rushing in your head and everything. Yeah. You're way more likely to like hallucinate, and that's when things come in, like nightmares, like seeing demons.
But it's
or
weird
ghosts
how you physically feel it as well, like in your body,
presences.
And it's like this like weird like energy feeling, like this buzzing almost, like all through your body, like especially like sleep paralysis. It happens like when you initially wake up and you can't move in your body. It like normally comes with this like vibration that you feel all throughout that's scary, you know, and stuff like that. But it's weird that it's like a physical sensation, like when your mind's awake, but your body's not awake yet, you know. It's just proper strange. I
wonder if the reason you don't remember the dream is because
like
it was so traumatic.
My brain just shut it off.
Your brain was literally like, you can't remember this.
Imagine if I went to some psychiatrist and then I had this like this weird experience and
I
remembered it and I was like, yeah, it's crazy.
I've just read this like crazy book, and do you know when you get so like ingrained in a book? Like, I think I read it in like 3 days. I've been watching these like NDE experiences and stuff.
Near-death experiences.
Really interesting. I just love watching them on YouTube.
I do think stuff like that's very cool.
Yeah, because a lot of them are like shared.
Not the near-death experiences themselves. Yeah, they're hearing these accounts.
Yeah, and like how lots of them can be similar about these life reviews that you have, and you like see like the good things you've done in your life. You see the bad things you've done in your life and stuff like that. People have like who talk about them generally. Or there's the thing about hovering over your body, and you can see the people operating you in the room and that. And like this guy. This guy had like a heart attack, like a crazy bad heart attack, and the whole book is basically about the process he went through into getting a new heart, and that he was running, like his heart was running on this like machine, that he was the first person ever to have this like machine. He was like the test patient for like the first person in the world. It's helped it bring it to new patients now and stuff, but he had basically like a couple of NDEs like in the process. One when he first had the heart attack and just before he flatlined and died, like officially died. I think he was dead for like 30 minutes. And he said time. And he went out of his body and saw the people operating on him, and like saw this man in the corner of the room and that, and like the whole story plays out that in his vision of this happening, he could see the man in the corner of the room saying, keep working on him, like to the doctor. And then like the description of this man that he gave to the doctor afterwards, she said, I would never normally like, you were dead for like over 20 minutes. Normally like after 10 minutes that's that, you know, but I had this feeling that I needed to carry on. I had this like intuition that I needed to keep it, we could have saved your life and stuff. That's crazy, and she did it, and it turns out after that he described the person to the doctor, and it was her father. Like it was like this old Indian guy that was like, you know, and stuff like that, and she said like but it was like this whole like revelation for her, because she was like, oh, you know, I've been lost faith in like, you know, but I had this feeling I knew I could save you, and like, oh, it's good to know that my dad's still around me. Do you know what I mean?
Dude,
like,
I think it's really cool. You know, I remember my mum always telling me, my mum was a really big believer in like trusting your instincts, and she always said like, you know, they're there for a reason, and it's like simple advice, but it's like the sort of advice that's always like stuck with me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I said, it's such a simple thing to say, but it's like, yeah, they are there for a reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like they're just higgledy-piggledy. It's like they're random. And that person, obviously, their instincts and their intuition was like, keep on, because it's almost like there was something in the back of their head that was like, this person can still be saved.
And he's exploring in the book about like, you know, are we connected on like a deeper level because of his experience that he had like in that, and there was another one that he had as well where he saw everything as like the book's called Quarks of Light, and it's like how like everything is like every soul is like a light, and there's some like ones that are dimmer, and you know, and he
you do
had
get
this,
weird
like,
connections with people though, don't you?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So he was saying that like basically telling the story of his process in this book, how everything is connected on a deeper level than we realise, and like if we use our intuition or like our natural instincts with stuff,
and almost like trust the process,
then like it's all linked.
Do you know what that reminded me of? You know, when we were getting back to a little bit when we were having our jam with Carmen, do you remember when we were talking about how it's like with some people it's really easy to jam with and other people it's not, and it's almost like you need to have that almost that
intuitive
psychic, it's almost like semi-psychic thing with somebody, where you're like reading them, because when you're jamming and stuff, it's not a song that you're like you've both learned and then you're playing along to. It's like you have to feel, a dance. You have to feel each other, and it's like you're dancing with each other, but with your instruments.
Communication,
and it's almost like sometimes if you're in tune with somebody enough, you can almost like intuitively with that person go into a different section. And it's the same section, even though you've both never played it before. And when you do it, it's almost like you feel ecstatic. Don't you? It's like you feel
like
elated.
that with a
yeah.
We did at the start, because that was like, you know.
Yeah. But it's like you do. When you go to that, it's like, oh, and then you feel like completely in sync with that person. And then other people, it's almost like, what I would describe it like, it's like with other people that you can't do it with, it's almost like you're trying to speak to them in English and they're trying to speak to you in Chinese or something. So it's like you just can't communicate with the instruments. But and then other people,
I love that, like the common language between people like isn't even language. It's like it's feeling, you know, and that
emotion.
And like music is a good way to explore that.
And also just almost like how some people you can almost like naturally gel with and you just feel completely comfortable around, and other people for some reason make you feel uncomfortable. And it's almost like you can't wait to get out of the room with them, because you're like, this is just like a weird awkward feeling. And then other people, you're just like, it's almost like you meet them and you just sort of just love them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, not like in like the same way obviously you love your partner.
Yeah, you just feel connected.
There's this way that you just feel like almost like instantly they're like a part of the furniture. Like, yeah, you're sort of my person. You're like, you know, you're my sort of person. Like,
yeah, man, that was it. And it was super cool. Like when like Carmen coming over, because like Carmen's like my ex-girlfriend from like years ago, and so obviously
a bit of a past.
So it was a bit like, you know, it was a bit like, is it going to be weird and stuff? But it is. When you're like connected with someone in that way, that is just like you've been through all of that, where it is just comfortable in that, it's like it's really nice to share that connection in a different way than it was before. You know what I mean? Like when you're a couple and actually just like we all just like had this awesome jam and gelled, and it was like this communication, and it was all that. It's like all of our like personalities were in sync.
It's almost like the perfect ingredient for that jam to happen, because it was a really good authentic jam. It was like all the right ingredients were there. And one of the things I really like about Carmen, actually, it's one of the things I really like about my grandmother as well, my dad's mum. And I think it's one of the reasons why my dad and my Uncle Mark have always been very successful. And it's like Carmen, it's almost like she sees life very simply, but in a good way. So it's like she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, well, I'd quite like to do that. And she's like, well, why don't you do it then? And it's like,
it's just like,
actually, why don't I just do it? But it's like, I don't know if it's like the Britishness in us or just being, so I don't think it's just our nationality, but I think some of it is the British way. And I think some of it is just modern living in general. It's like you almost overcomplicate things. It's like, well, I'd like to do this, but I don't think I can.
Overcomplicate things. And also, like, for me, a big part of it is being comfortable. Like, it's so easy, and so it feels so good to be comfortable that sometimes that can inhibit you from like
leaving that comfort zone.
And just like and it's almost like you don't think about what you want to do. You just do what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, that's a good thing about people like Carmen and my grandmother, though.
She's got like, this fire that's like, what are you going to do?
And it's almost like when they put it like that, it's almost like they're saying to you, like, because it's removing any self-doubt in your head. When people like my grandmother, and as I said, I think it's why my dad's always been very successful, and why people like Carmen as well around him, because she's very much just like, the way they talk about it very simply, it's like, you can do it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, just do
really
it.
Simplifies it.
Whereas I think some people are like, it'd be quite hard, and you'd have to do it, and it's almost like, I won't do it then.
Creeps in.
Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, it's nice to be around people that are just like, oh, if you want to do something, just do it. Or other people can do it, so why can't you?
Isn't it? Because it's like positive action to be taken from those things.
And sort of like positive reinforcement as well.
I do think 90% of things you can do that with. Obviously, there are some occasions on things, but you need to prepare yourself first. But then you could consider preparation part of doing something, couldn't you?
Oh, totally.
I think as long as
it's a massive part of it.
Yeah, I think as long as you use your common sense. So don't get me wrong. There's obviously like certain things that other people can do better than others. And
I'm not all of a sudden going to become an astronaut or something.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not suddenly going to be freaking like run a faster marathon time than Mo Farah. Do you know what I mean? Even regardless of how much I want to, because I'm so much bigger and heavier than him, and I'm just not. Do you know what I mean? I'm just all these so many factors. But at the same time, though, I do think there's a lot to be said for like, well, if a human being can do something, well, then why can't you do it? As I said, as long as you're taking common sense into account, as long as there's not a reason why you couldn't do it, like an actual proper reason, not like a reason like, oh, well, I don't know, just like a silly reason. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
no, that's it. Because I definitely feel like, if you see, like you said, if another human being can do it, like why can't you do it? A lot of the time, like if you see someone that can do something amazing, like rather than have. It depends on your mindset on it. Like sometimes you can use it as inspiration, which is good and makes you feel that you could work towards that. But sometimes it gives you even more self-doubt because you think, I could never do that. Do you know what I mean? And it's like really annoying because I fall on that side of things more rather than being positive and being like, that person's an inspiration. It's going to make me do something awesome. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel more like, oh, look, I can't believe that. I get a bit more like think about it. Like...
Yeah, I have to say actually, I don't think I'm like negative in that way because I definitely have like certain people that I see with like as role models, but I find that they fuel my fire.
Yeah,
rather than the other way
around.
That's
super positive. Yeah.
And one thing I want to say though as well, like I know it sounds like I'm super big and Carmen up in a way, and that's not necessarily my objective. But to be fair to Carmen, what just goes in line with what we're saying is how many people do you meet, especially as a musician yourself, who you might be playing say your guitar or something, and you meet a lot of people that are like, I wish I could learn an instrument. I wish I'd taken up an instrument when you were a kid. Last time we saw Carmen 2 years ago, she didn't know how to play an instrument, right? It's almost like she was inspired by being with you and stuff like that to learn music, and I think by being around people like us, and then. She basically went away. She's come back now. She's playing the harp, like pretty well. Enough that she could play her along with anyone. And she's playing. She was literally playing along the whole time. I said I was playing The Unforgiven in the kitchen. She was just playing along.
Picked up the flute and just started playing along with it. Never heard the song before.
2 years.
Yeah,
relatively short amount of time. But think because she had that attitude. How many people do you know that were 2 years ago would be like, oh, I'd like to learn an instrument, but I didn't take it up when I was young, maybe. So there's no point, or there's no time, or you took it up when we were like 12 or 13, but there's no point now because I'm older. It's like, I mean, as I said, Carmen, she just took it up 2 years ago, and now she can play, and she's only going to get better from here, and she can already play well.
Mate, it's made me want to get a harp so bad.
Oh yeah, man!
Like literally,
I've always loved harps.
I've been looking up harps like loads, and you can get like a real nice 29 string like Celtic harp for like quite not stupid money, Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that'd be so beautiful. Just like having that in the studio and just jamming with that, that'd be so cool.
100%, dude.
Angelic. Yeah. So where would you say motivation comes from for you? I know for me, for example, if I get motivation, it will just be a lot of the time out of nowhere, where I'll just get hit with like a sudden thing of, you know what, I want to do it. I'm just going to do it. But most of the time, I almost wait for that motivation to hit me. Where would you say it sort of comes for you?
Like similar really. It's like
I think it's most people.
Just
but you were saying obviously with you, like you can take motivation from like looking into your role models.
But I would say it's almost like different. So I'd say it's almost like if I have like a fuel tank then my inspirations are almost like filling up my fuel tank, but then I still need to wait for that little spark that you're almost like saying, and then once that happens, then I can feed off the fuel tank. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I remember like hearing this quote, and it was this guy. There's this really good book called not The Art of War by Lao Tzu, but The War of Art. And it's basically a book about resistance and about like coming. The main like negativity in the world is like resistance, like to do something, and that's what holds you back. So he says he says this quote about his muses, which is like the Greek thing for inspiration. And he's like. It was about inspiration. It was like, I'm going to butcher it now, it's like really annoying, but it's basically along the lines of I wait for so I need to work with my inspiration, but luckily enough for me, my inspiration comes at 9 a.m. every morning when I sit at my desk. So basically what he's saying is like, you can't ever wait for inspiration to happen. If the act of like starting it and say getting up at 9 a.m. and just starting, because his thing is writing. So he said every day, sometimes it'd be rubbish, but he'd get up 9 a.m. and just that constant doing that every day.
Yeah.
And then just in the act of doing, then the muses would come, then the inspiration would come. So it's like you've got your free will, like you've got to actually like put in the effort to create the spark by doing something, and then pretty much it will always come through. I think the inspiration.
Almost this is going in exactly the same like vein as this, but some of the people that I look up to most, I know that I've heard several people say it. Jocko Willink is one, a guy that I follow and sort of inspires me, former US Navy SEAL. Dr. Mike Israel, who's like a doctor, but he's also like a powerlifter, jiu-jitsu guy, a really smart guy. I've learned a lot from his teachings. I've got several of his books and I watch a lot of his stuff online. And they say, how many people do you know when they comes to like working out, and they might be say like talking to somebody that does work out, and they're like, I wish I could do what you do more often, but I just can't seem to stay motivated. And what they always say is, you don't need to be motivated, you need discipline.
Yes.
Or you need to be dedicated. You know, there's like, because discipline. If people only ever did things when they were motivated, they'd only do things like 10 times a year.
Yeah.
Well, that's not enough to ever progress.
Because it's awesome when it comes around and you're like super inspired, super motivated, but like you can actually make that happen by being disciplined.
And eventually you don't even need to be, because once something becomes habit, you just do it.
Yeah. So making discipline a habit. And
I suppose that's the reason why so many things get left until the last minute, like tasks. Think of when going to school, for example, you get set homework, every time it would be the last thing you do before it needs to be done. And I wonder if that's because
I just never do it.
The spark. For majority of people, you would say like tasks usually would get done pretty late on. And I reckon that is because what you need is, you need to just discipline. Have that spark and that discipline of like, you know what, no, I need to do it. I'm not going to wait for this to hit me. I'm just going to do it. And then once you start,
it's funny, I think it's just natural things of being human. Like I was saying about being comfortable, you don't want to, because it's like effort, isn't it? Like
you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think being comfortable is like ingrained in our genetics of like, you want to save energy, like, because think of back,
and not just that. We can be, because we live in such a good society.
Yeah.
I know, don't get me wrong, at the moment we've got things like energy crisis, fuels up, but let's face it, guys, relatively, even on a global scale now, if you're a British person,
it's up there.
Or if you're listening and you're an American person or an Australian person or whatever, we're like in the top sort of 5% on the planet in terms of our luxuries. You can lie on a comfy sofa and play a video game or watch Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, whatever,
every day of the week.
If you can drive to the supermarket and buy a cheesecake and get it back and sit it on your sofa and eat it while watching Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, you're pretty freaking sorted.
Isn't it funny though, like how we have that as a society. So you think of like that like everyone will be super happy.
Yeah.
But like it's funny how it raises other questions, as in like, how am I being like as productive as I could be in it? Because you know what I mean? Like once you are too comfortable, there's almost something in your like in you that's like basically knows that that's not 100,000,000% like good for your soul.
Well, do you know what I mean? It's reminding me of that saying, and it's like bad times create hard people create good times create soft people create hard times.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like this cycle that the humanity goes through. I mean, you could say we're going through it a little bit now. You could say that the Roman Empire was a good example of it, or other empires in the past, and it's like, it is sort of true though. You go through that sort of like, some of the people that lived in the hardest times, their lives would have been very hard, but in a way they had so much purpose and everything, and they probably felt so accomplished creating these good times.
Yeah.
But by the time the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth generations of that good times come through, you've never really faced adversity. You can live your whole entire life from infancy to death pretty much just being comfortable your whole entire life. You might not feel accomplished, you might even feel depressed, but you're comkomfortable, and the comfort is so tempting that sometimes people would rather be depressed and comfortable, like without being rude, like sort of fat, unhealthy, mentally sort of quite negative, armchair critics. You think of all these things, but you're just comfy on your chair watching your telly, arguing with people on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. you know, and then you just live your whole life like it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's mad,
because it's just too easy to be comfortable like it, you know? Rather than like some Peruvian farmer or something. Do you know what I mean? And they're probably way happier.
Yeah,
even though they probably walk like 40 miles a day in barefoot. And
and also as well, it seems to like be when you get super comfortable, like you become more disconnected from each other as well. Like in a way, like, you know, like say with like social media,
well, like being rude to people on social media. And things like that.
Well, not so much that. Like getting your connections and your communications through social media can isolate people even more. So that when they're out,
that connection
with actual one-on-one connection with people, that could be
that's what's the most important thing.
And what I noticed the other day, I was thinking about it because I was on my way home. Do you remember I said there was that big crash on the
chatting to that guy?
Yeah, and it was like it really made me think. Like, you know, I would have never. Like, not that there was anything wrong with the guy or anything, but like I can't imagine ever just like going up. Do you know what I mean? There takes some kind of thing happening. That's like almost like a tragedy or like a situation that almost like it pulls humans together to like help each other and to like chat to each other and that, and then when that happens, it's like super positive and it's like, oh, you know, it's good that, you know, but it's funny how it takes these like crazy things to happen to actually bring people together. And what you said about like you know, the different situations that people have been in, like wars and stuff like that. It's like you have to help each other to survive, and then that like creates this like bond, unity, this communication, this unity that's like super positive. You know?
Definitely, man.
It's crazy.
I think that's why, you know, it's like you know, you think about like you know, like old societies, and it would be almost like a small settlement. Everyone would have had their role. You wake up every day with such a sense of purpose. You know what your role is, and you know that your tribe, your settlement are depending on you. Yeah. So you get to do it, and then you end every day feeling fulfilled. You all gather around together. You eat your freaking wild boar or whatever the hunters. Maybe you're the hunter, have hunted that day. You know, maybe the people that have like made the clothes in your settlement have just made you a nice new tunic, you know, and you sit down, the bards there playing, you know, you're all having a good time. The bard's probably singing you some tale about your grandfather and what he did in his life or something, and you're like getting a history lesson, a moral lesson, the arts actually themselves. You're just feeling a unity. You're all making each other good.
Sounds like a utopia.
Yeah, it would be a nice thing. It's like a hard life, but it's a good life.
Yeah, and it's like knowing your place in it. Like, you know, like knowing what your...
know your place.
Know your place, like knowing... You know
what
I mean?
Your role.
Like,
a sense of purpose.
Knowing your role and giving that... Because there's nothing worse than like not having a sense of purpose. And I think a lot of people go through that. Like, you know, just in normal society, it's like...
Yeah, I think that's why it's really important to like look after your family and friends and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because that helps give you a sense of purpose as well, I think. You know,
like your think about the people that looked after you when you were like a little kid. If they're still alive, make sure you look after them, because you know, there's nothing more rewarding than that. And you know, just stuff like that. You know, if you have kids, make sure you look after them. Make sure that you're a good parent to them, and your friends. You know, make sure that you know
it's like
if your friends need something, actually make sure that you can help them. Do you know what I mean? Rather than thinking like, you know, like some people are like, not my problem. Like, yeah, it might be funny saying that at the time. It's not, but you know, really, you know, you should. If you've got somebody like, you know, an old friend or something, you know, that's your tribe. Yeah. That's your tribe.
I think it's like the relationships that you cultivate in your life are like the things you're going to remember compared to like the things that you have and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like they're the things that have most impact on you and as a person.
That's the thing that makes you feel most accomplished.
Yeah, and I think so that makes some of the most important things that you can experience. Yeah. So it's like nurture those things.
Making my grandfather or my grandmother or my daughter happy makes me feel more accomplished than probably anything else on the earth.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's super positive.
I think that's part of the reason why we spoke about social media earlier and how it can actually be the least social thing that you have.
Anti-social media.
Anti-social media, that's it. Oh, that's what it should be called.
I feel like a whole reason for that is because people can log on to social media and see these things and you know, be honest, if we're going to post something on social media, it's going to be something that we're proud of, something that...
Or just something that's designed to either make somebody laugh or maybe hopefully somebody might take something away from it, whether it's like an interesting fact or just put a smile on their face. Yeah.
But I think a lot of social media is made to make people think that you have almost the perfect life. Almost you're going on holiday.
Instagram
this person's gone to this place. This person's doing this.
And I think we see this a little bit, but your generation as
Absolutely.
well. And like this. When I was saying about this book I've just read.
Yeah.
So the crazy part about it. So this heart that he actually got was from a 20-year-old girl that killed herself, and he did this whole section of the book on why she killed herself and stuff, and it was the pressures being a 20-year-old girl in America
in a man's body.
Literally. And they was talking about social media, and it was saying about she had 4,000 friends, and this guy who had the heart, he was he didn't understand anything about social media, so her friend that he was speaking to was telling him about it. And she was he saw her and she was showing him her Facebook and stuff, and he was how can a person with 4,000 friends feel isolated? And it's well, they're not really friends. They're they're who you judge your life on.
I think it's important to remember as well that you could be in a room full of people and still feel alone.
Yeah.
And you could be in a room with just one person, or maybe even on your own, and feel completely content and fulfilled.
You could be, even on your own.
Even on your own.
If you're in that positive mindset.
Definitely.
I think that's where what I was going to go on to with the lack of purpose is that I feel like a lot of people log on to social media and see these things of people posting, making their lives looking to be so good, and they'll go, you know what, that's what I want my life to be. And they'll go out and maybe they'll go on holiday. Maybe they'll go do this stuff. Maybe,
take some pictures.
Exactly. And they'll end up, maybe they post these photos on their feed and their life looks amazing. But at the end of the day, they'll come to that realization that isn't their purpose in life, to make everyone else seem to think that they are living the perfect life.
Yeah.
It should more be about what you picture as your perfect life and what you want to go on and strive to do. And that's what... in my opinion,
it's weird because I don't think I definitely think some people probably do it deliberately, but say on my Instagram, obviously I don't post any of the bad stuff from my life really on Instagram.
Yeah.
Apart from anything else, I just don't like to be negative. Doesn't mean that my life's really good. All the time. Don't get me wrong, my life is good. I'm a happy guy, but we all have our moments where we're not happy.
Course,
but if all I'm posting is the good stuff about my life on Instagram, I'm not doing that because I'm trying to make out my life's perfect. I mean, so I don't think it's always
you're doing
deliberate.
it because you're celebrating your life.
Yeah, but I almost think if I didn't know me and I went on my Instagram and looked through, then I could see how somebody might think that. Do you know what I mean? Or obviously on way more extreme cases, I think say you took someone, like The Rock, and you'd almost just be you'd almost hate him, well, not hate him, I wouldn't, but you could see how some people would almost resent him so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's rich.
It's just such a comparison, innit? And then when you put yourself against his comparison, you can be like I say, I do it with if I'm looking at some guitar thing or something, and I'm like, what? I've been just working on this riff for ages, and I just see someone just ripping this thing, and I'm like, what? You know?
And I think social media would never work without that. For example, I've spoken to you guys about that new app called Be Real, which has been around for a little bit.
Be Real, baby.
The whole concept of the of the app is being real. So it will give you a notification once a day and say, right, you've got 2 minutes, I believe it is, to take a photo of exactly what you're doing right now. So everyone will take this photo when they get the notification, so everyone can see what everyone's everyday life actually is.
Yeah.
And I had the app for a little bit, and I used it for a little bit. I thought it was a cool concept. Probably won't last a month, whatever. No. Just check it out.
It's a cool concept, but I think it's ultimately quite boring.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You clock on and you go, oh, this person's doing nothing, this person's doing nothing. And then you think, I actually don't care to see people doing nothing. I would rather see a cool if someone posts on there at a concert or
if I have a mate that's into lifting,
on holiday,
I know that they'll be interested in seeing a video of me lifting.
Yeah.
If I have a mate of mine that likes music, I know they're going to be interested maybe in seeing a video of me playing something on my guitar or something, singing. But who wants to see you I don't know,
taking a crap,
about to go to the well, that's funny. But imagine it's like you're
about to take a crap, you're just walking to the toilet,
or you're in the supermarket and it's just like a picture of an aisle.
You know what I mean? It's like
just
that's
lying
what
in bed.
I understand the problems of it, but all it is people's perspective on it. If you look at it, like I said about a celebration, of course it's like really cool to like celebrate something that you're doing that's cool, like that. And if people look at it like that and are just like, "Way,"
you shouldn't compare. I think what it comes down to, it's
people's reactions, but you need to take responsibility for that.
Yes.
People shouldn't stop posting cool stuff.
Concentrate on yourself.
Concentrate
on yourself, definitely, and like making the best of yourself, not focusing on how jealous you are of other people, or is that person's life better than mine, or their life seems so good. Because you don't know what everyone's been through themselves. Like some people might have really struggled through adversity to get a good life. All you're now just seeing is the good stuff from it. But that person might have had it even worse than you to start off with. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, but they are just trying to be very positive, and they're following through on this positive momentum. And what we were saying earlier, maybe they've realised that they need to be sort of disciplined, and if somebody,
you can do all of those things and apply it to social media, and it'll be positive.
They're practicing that instrument all the time. They're working out all the time. They're doing this stuff all the time. So now they look like an enviable person. But it's because
it's like a balance,
they put the work in.
And it's like, and even for you when you're posting that stuff out, are you doing it to like? Is it for your ego and for like and for the endorphins that you get from someone liking your thing? Because that's a proven thing as well, isn't it?
Yes. Like, and I think everyone is like that.
Definitely.
So it's like just bringing it into balance and figuring out like why you're doing something. Like, because the other thing is like I hate it sometimes. Like, I think we're saying like no phones in bed now, but like which we still haven't done. But we're like, we'll both lie there and it's like unconscious, just scrolling.
And
it's like that.
Yes. And you're like drones.
If I was a fly on the wall and I saw that, I can imagine being like, that's just a bit weird, isn't it? It's like not so positive. Like you want to have that as like a moment where you connect or something, and have a chat or something like that. Rather
this happens like when I see my friends as well, and you wouldn't think it would, but
zombies.
Like literally, I'll go out with my friends. Maybe haven't seen them in a couple months. We'll sit down and we'll want to do something, maybe play a board game or something. But it'll just end up in everyone just looking at their phones, and someone will literally have to say, right, everyone put your phone down, because it is a trap, and it's like being hypnotized into this world.
And that's the thing. It's the unconscious part of it. It's a way of you like to just tapping into that unconscious where you don't have to think, and you just like.
I have to say one thing I'm pretty happy about. I don't think us lot do that.
I definitely do it sometimes.
Sometimes when we're out in a friendship situation?
Oh no, not when we're out. But
I was going to say I do it on my own. Like I can't imagine. I can't remember any situation where I say it's been like whether it's just me and you.
Think of like when we grow up, and that's what I mean about generation thing. Like I remember not not having a phone. I remember Facebook not being a thing, and like
if anything, when we're in a friendship scenario, I actually forget I almost have a phone for a few hours.
Which
and then
is
it's
amazing.
Like, then when everyone goes home, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll quickly check my phone maybe.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I've got a couple of messages.
And sometimes as well, I have like left my phone somewhere and I'm like, oh yeah, that feels good just not having it for a bit. And I'm like, right, should I be a bit more disciplined about it? And like, I know it's good for people to be able to get hold of you and stuff like that.
But sometimes you don't want them to get hold of you.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I have an hour to get back to people, to check my emails, do all that stuff at like the end of the day or something, and then just like do that and like not have the phone for the rest of the time, like see what that is, a bit of an experiment.
Definitely
thought about it.
Right, we're gonna listen to a track now, people. When we come back in the second hour, we'll carry on this conversation. We'll ride out this wave because it's an interesting topic. Hope everyone's having a good day. This track is 9 Is God by Waves. Enjoy, everybody.
Pandora's box is about to open.
Wide. So wide. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Pandora's Box on AW Radio. You might also be listening to us on the YouTubes or the Spotify's. Whichever way you're listening to us, we love you. We appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day out there. I was going to say, Drew, because we were talking about near-death experiences earlier, and I've heard some really fascinating ones, but in the ones I've listened to is because a bit how you just are really into listening to near-death experiences. I'm very much into sort of like, I like both fictional like ghost stories and horror stories and stuff, but sometimes I listen to like podcasts and stuff and like
real
accounts, and sometimes they're real ones as well. And the ones I've listened to, because they're almost more in that genre of being a bit more supernatural, some of them are like really quite dark.
Oh yeah.
So have you heard some like any dark ones?
I've heard one comes to mind that was like super dark.
So if you tell me one, and I'll tell you this also, one that I had, which was actually so dark.
Yeah, this one was really dark.
Yeah, go on.
This guy was like a he was like a real high up professor in a university, and he was like proper in the mind, like full on, like counted his worth on his success in that.
A bit of a Scrooge in that way.
Yeah. Like,
everything was like, how much money have you got?
Perfection.
Yeah.
Perfection,
legacy.
Scrooge, legacy, all that stuff. And students, like, he would be so demanding of his students and that, you know, which was good in a way because, like, you know, it made them productive, but he lost sight of almost being decent human beings. Yeah, like, real super angry all the time. He had problems with like anger and things like that. And he said he had this he like died in an operation, right? And he said like he was he went out of his body, but he was so disconnected, didn't think there was any afterlife, anything like that. Like, so like he went out of his body and realized he was looking, but he thought it was a trick. He thought, because it was so natural that it happened, he felt like he had a body, but he was just walking around the room and stuff, and saw them operating. And he was like, the first thing that come into my head was like the doctors and that had created a waxwork model of me, and like this was like a massive prank. I just woke up from this because he was passed out like when
and obviously you're trying to rationalise in your head.
So totally rational. So like he was rationalising the hell out of the situation, and like and said he was screaming at the surgeons, telling them to tell him what's going on, like demanding that they tell him what was going on. He was like that kind of person, you know. And he said that and he realized that no one was hearing him, no one was listening to him. So at one point in the experience, like he said, some other doctors came out and like led him off down the corridor, and so he went with them, and he thought, oh, he'll understand, they'll tell me what, but it, you know, they say about meeting other people on the other side and that. So that it was like these, and they took him and down, but it was like he'd been tricked, and like he followed him down, and he said like went through this experience where he ended up in this place which he can only like describe as like the Hieronymus Bosch painting of Purgatory.
Oh my god!
You know that he said he literally.
For anybody that doesn't know what that is, just look up Hieronymus Bosch.
All
of his artwork and stuff.
And literally, so but this is like when you're so in denial of the fact that there is like something like after.
What, like supernatural? That
almost you get played by it. Like, do you know what I mean? So he ended up in this place, and he said he was like, it's like he got dragged into like just this desolate like area that was just all these like horrible beings that were just like beating him but he would never die, but he still thought he wasn't dead.
Didn't you
know
say
what I mean?
That one of them sexually assaulted him?
Yeah. So I've told you this story before, haven't I?
I think you did privately.
And so that he said and when he's telling this story, he's in tears. Like, he was saying that he experienced like they were all like completely just like raping him and like killing him and stabbing him and doing that. And he said like he was like lying there. Brutal. And like you know, in this thing, and he realized that he must be dead, or and this must be hell. Whoa. And he was in hell. And like he said, he was lying there after he said it had gone on for so long that he just lied there, like in the end.
Almost reminds me of
like in acceptance.
Yeah, just completely still and like numb. He said he was like completely
you numb. Go past the stage
and he
of
said,
horror.
And he said, and that was the thing. He said like he was they were all doing all that to him and that, and he said the only thing he could think of he said he started saying like the Lord's Prayer.
Right. I think you might have told me this story.
Yeah, and he was doing, and he
said, great story,
he said like the Lord's Prayer, and he was like all of these demons and that like that were around him, and these people. He said when he was doing that, they were getting like more vicious, more angry, and saying like, he's not gonna help you, but he was realizing that it was annoying him, and he was like the only way that he could do anything to do anything with them was by triggering them like that. So he kept doing it, and he said he kept getting angrier and like triggering him even more, and in the end they started like moving on and like moving away from him. So then he was there on his own, and then he started thinking, right, I'm gonna like starting planning things out of like when they come back about like trying to kill them and trying to rip their heads off and stuff like that, and then almost like go into their level. So it's almost like that's how they become like a part of that. How he'd become like a part of them in that place.
Always become them.
And then he said he just had this thought of like, if that is who I have to be, I just don't even want to exist anymore. Like my soul, I just don't want to exist. If I have to just inflict that on them because that's the only way I can survive, I don't want to live anymore. And then he said like, and then he said he prayed. He said he prayed to Jesus that he wouldn't exist anymore or something, or like that, that. And then he said like Jesus came and like kind of lifted him out of the place and like kind of took him off like into this experience where then he had like a life review in that, and he realized that he was. It is like,
actually very much like the whole story of Scrooge.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the dark. This is like the freaking 18 version.
Yeah,
because the Scrooge doesn't have sexual assault. But it's very similar in terms of like a higher being is teaching you a lesson, takes you sort of on this journey, makes you realise, life evaluation, because in Scrooge it shows him his life from a boy and almost like shows him where he went wrong. And then by the time he comes out the other side, he goes from being like the horriblest man in town to like, he goes and buys Bob Cratchit's family at the most amazing
like
Christmas
the
meal.
And that you see from it.
He realises what it truly is to be a decent human being, and it's not all about how much money you got in your bank, it's about being a decent person.
Yeah, and that was it. And with the life review, I think it was all of that stuff that he said he was seen when he went to the light and that. But it was almost all of his perspective on things is what created the illusion that there was no spirit. And if you've got that illusion, then that's what could like take you into like deception of all of those beings and stuff like that, with all that hatred and stuff like that. It was because he just had no like concept of like the better stuff in life, and do you know what I mean? It was like proper weird though. I can't remember the second part of it so much, but it was just like that's always stuck with me, just because like you don't hear so many like horrible things with them so much. But that was one that I heard that was like he like went to hell, because a lot of them you hear just is more about like seeing a light and then getting kind of shown a life review and stuff,
I tell you, that one that I heard, it was like a whole episode, and it was about like 3 or 4 different like pretty horrific like near-death experience ones. So I'll send it to the both of you if you want to listen to it.
Oh yeah, I love it.
But I mean, I can't remember like the specifics like in as much in detail as you did, but I know it was like a similar situation in terms of like a guy that was in hospital and he was like near death, and but he would like wake up in his hotel room in the middle of the night, and there was just like this like dark figure like in the corner of the room. And it was like almost like this like demonic entity, and it would like make him feel uneasy. And there'd be times where and then he'd be like terrified, and then he'd like call the buzzer, and the nurse would come in and turn the light on, and it would just be gone. And there was other times he said like he like woke up and he'd like feel something on his leg, and he when you're like half asleep and you're almost like just wriggling around, you might just think it's whatever, and then he'd like look down and there'd be like this weird black arm had like reached up from under the bed, and it was like on it, and it was on him. And I think he said that when he was there, what was the exact thing? I can't remember the exact thing, but I think it sort of like ended one night. I can't remember. Something happened. I don't know whether it was like something a doctor did, or something like a priest did, or something like that, or just maybe the way that he shifted his mindset a little bit, like with your story with the man, of when he almost like called out to Jesus or whatever. But then I remember he said it almost like then from like under the bed, it was almost like scuttling, almost like in this horrible weird way, almost like a spider would, but like a demon. It was like scuttled from out of his bed and like went out of the room. Whoa. And then it was like, and then he recovered. But then it's like, it was a bit like with your story. It was like but a bit like with your story beforehand, he was like a very like completely skeptical, didn't believe in anything, and now he's like a very God-fearing guy. And since he's come out, he's like completely changed his life. And I just remembered another. This is a bit of a different story, but you were like, you've talked a little bit before about like Ouija boards and stuff like this. Because this just reminded me of a bit of a similar story.
I used to do them a lot.
I heard a good one recently, actually, just while I was mowing my lawn, and it was about a boy in Mexico, and they his parents were really Catholic, and anyway, he found a Ouija board in his attic of like this farm that they lived. And I don't think it was theirs, they just found it. Anyway, because his parents were really Catholic, they were like, no, we do not want you doing that. You know, like we don't mess with that, because you know Catholics are very strict, Christians relatively, and anyway, he just had like 2 friends from school that basically convinced him to do it, and his parents found out, were like really angry about it, and I think in the story they said that they destroyed the Ouija board, or they took it away anyway. Anyway, like weird stuff slowly started happening to the boy. So like at first it was just like he came home from school and he went in his room and the Ouija board was just like on his bed, and he thought his parents were pulling a prank on him to like almost like teach him a lesson. And we're like, oh, like where's this Ouija? And they were obviously like really confused, and they were like, no, we didn't put it there, like, you know, we took it away. And anyway, he was like, oh, haha, very funny. Anyway, they took it away, and then he started having like really bad nightmares, and then things started like coming to him in the night, like every single night. Like every single night when he would go to sleep, there was like beings, like a being would be in his room, and stuff like that, and like just horrible stuff just started happening to him in his life all the time. Like sometimes when he was even like just awake in the day and stuff, and he'd start like hallucinating like horrible things. And in the end, a priest, when his family found out and fully and stuff, being Catholic, they got like a priest involved and they did an exorcism and all this stuff. And apparently the priest made him this necklace, and I can't remember what they said it was made of. It had it had some symbol on it. I think it was wooden, but it had like a symbol on it. And he said you have to wear it for the rest of your life.
What? And the priest made him this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't know. I can't remember if he made him it or he gave him it, but either way, he said you have to wear this for the rest of your life. And it basically went to say that, you know, the guy grew up, he always wore this. He basically, it's like as time went on, I mean, it never happened to him again. It just miraculously stopped. But it was really interesting. Apparently, the guy that told this story to the guy that was relaying it on his podcast basically said that there's been a couple of times over the years, you know, he's like, you know, that he might say accidentally like take it off, and he's like left it in his coat. And then he's gone to sleep that night, and then he's had a bad experience.
Well,
and then wake up in the middle of the night.
Away.
Yeah, so it's almost like it's almost always waiting because of this thing that he did with the Ouija board when he was a lad, and he has to wear it like all times now.
It's
and
crazy,
if he doesn't wear it, then it's like it's coming in. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Be thankful that never happened to you.
Yeah, man. That's it. It's like it's scary when you think of there could be like these dark like forces that are just like preying on preying on you.
You asked my old man this as well. Well, my granddad's got like a story of like a guy that my granddad knew who did a Ouija board, and then apparently like and the Ouija board, it said like, you know, that his life was going to be like ruined and stuff like that, and it all got a little bit freaky. So they just like cut off the Ouija and just like stopped doing it. Just did it, and you're supposed to almost like leave, aren't you?
Aren't you meant to? You're like, there's a way you sign off or something.
Yeah, you're supposed to say goodbye, but I don't think he did it. They just like freaked out and stopped.
Right.
Yeah. So that's leaving the connection open.
And apparently he owned this factory, and then like the next week the factory burnt down, and he lost like everything. Like financially, he was corrupt.
The thing, the ghost was just looking out for him. It's like, man, you better watch it. Everything's going bad. Everything's going downhill for you, man.
I mean, at the end of the day, like let's face it, like a lot of these things, because I'm not even saying I necessarily think that all these things are supernatural, but I'm not saying I don't think they are either. I mean, there could be substances in the brain, like chemical reactions that are going on. Some things, it could be coincidence, but certainly intriguing. Either way, regardless of what's going on, I think it's because we don't know. When we hear stories like this, we're like, whoa. Well, regardless of what it is, even if it's just like something that was going on in that guy's, you know, take your guy, for example, the one that you said, you know, said he went to purgatory and hell or whatever, and regardless of whether that's actually like physically or mentally happened actually the same way we're here now or didn't, it's still fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's the experience as well, and how that affects that person's life. Because another thing that was really interesting with another one of these NDEs, it was like a more simple one that I can remember, was it was like I think it was like an Indian lad or something that was like a young guy that had he worked in one city in India, and he had to travel back to his hometown. He was going to visit his parents and stuff, and it was this horrible like little dirt road, and basically he was going and there was a car coming opposite as well, and they had a crash. He like died, had like this out of body experience. And he was saying he had this life review, and what I found was like really interesting about it. It's like you think about the positive things you do in your life and the negative things you do and the impact they actually have. Like, we can think that things aren't connected and like things won't be as things won't be as big, significant, in what we're doing. But he said in this life review that he had, he saw the significance. He saw how powerful even the smallest actions, whether they're good or whether they're bad, can have an effect. Like without you realizing consciously.
Have you ever heard that? I don't really know how to describe it. It's not like a saying, really. It's that thing, and it's like you learn a lot on. Have you heard that? Either of you heard this before? It's like you can tell a lot about somebody of whether they put their trolley back when they go to the supermarket. Have you heard that?
No.
Have you heard that? And I think it's actually a really good way of looking at life. So, like, obviously, you go to the supermarket, you get a trolley, you go back to your car, right? You do two things. You do one of two things. You either leave the trolley, basically where your car was in the supermarket, or like
you
roughly,
put it back,
or you go and put it back. Now, the whole idea behind it is there's no benefit to you whatsoever to put the trolley back, and you don't have to. It's not against the law, but like with a lot of things in life that you don't necessarily have to do, it's not against the law not to do it, but it says a lot about you whether you do or not. If you take that extra 30 seconds to a minute to go out of your way to put that trolley back so that the next person can use it, or so that Sainsbury's employee, whatever supermarket employee, doesn't then have to go out of their way to go and round up the trolleys when really they should just all be in the same place anyway, then that says a lot about you as a person. If you're willing to just take 30 seconds to a minute out of your day just to do the considerate thing, or you're going to just do the selfish thing just because it's what's best for you. And it's like the ripple effect
of that, like what that will do.
The
like
butterfly effect.
Yeah. And that's it. And in this experience, so he was shown two things that he'd forgotten from his life, right? And one of them was like he was like in his home village, and he had this pail of water, a pail of water, a bucket of water, and he needed to chuck it out. And he instead of just chucking it, he saw a tree, and he went over to the tree and he poured it on the bottom of the tree. This is like when he was like 6 or something. And he said in this vision that he had in his outer body experience, he could see like the whole universe like praising and singing him for this act. And this is something that he had. He was unconscious of, like couldn't remember. And he was saying that small insignificant thing that you wouldn't even think. It's not insignificant. He said like in the universe, in the scale of the universe, like everywhere, like you know, the wider like thing of the universe saw it and was like, whoa. And he said he also got shown this thing of like when he was about 11 years old, he really savagely beat up this other little kid,
right?
And he'd forgotten about it as well, but like he saw it. And he said he realised that he was shown in this vision that like negative energy as well also has a huge impact on everything around it. So he said he saw this kid walk back to his parents, and he said he could see in this vision of like everything that this kid was coming in contact to, because he was like so like negative because he'd just been like beaten the hell out of and just like self-worth and all that, just like, oh my god, like
his ego was crumpled.
And he said everything that like touched was all like, it was like killing it as he went past,
almost like you imagine like touching a flower and it going dying.
And he was saying he could see how this was having an impact. And then it got back and it showed the parents and how like in the future they were super worried every time that the kid went out and was not back in time and stuff. And he said he was shown all this stuff like which he had but it was almost like the universe like showing him that like what you do, you have the free will to either do something good or do something bad, and if you choose something good, it's gonna, you know, the actual significance of that choice has a huge impact on the world. And like it's stuff like that, I think these NDEs are like proper interesting, because that's almost like really simple steps that you could take back to your normal life, and it could have a huge impact on what you do day to day.
Yeah, that's like what it's called, an epiphany. You know? I had a bit of an epiphany when my poo demon thing happened.
Oh yeah,
because that was probably like the most negative I've ever been in my life around that stage. And then I had poo demon gate, and then I've had an epiphany, and then I just sort of almost felt like I went back to just being me, like like default me.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I feel like we almost have like a default version of ourselves.
Yeah, which is
and I went back
positive.
to I felt back. Well, not necessarily positive or negative, maybe, but just almost like who you are at your core.
Okay,
and I felt I went back to being like default me, whereas I felt like I was in a really negative stage of my life.
Maybe that was the demon like attached to you that was making you like that.
Yeah, or maybe I'd like accidentally
created it.
Yeah, created it. It was like a visual representation of the negativity.
Of that part of you, yeah.
Or maybe summoned it through like like not summoned it in
patterns of behavior.
But it's like if you attract if your negativity is, let's face it, I mean I don't want to be like overly epic about it, but if you want to like negativity and things like that ultimately could maybe lead to like evil in the world, in terms of like, let's face it, there's good and there's evil, and it's quite easy to see the difference between the two. Good is helping somebody out, but evil is mugging them.
Yeah,
because like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've never been like unpleasant to people like that, but I was in a negative headspace. It's almost like you're attracting bad stuff. And let's face it, regardless of whether it's like a visual hallucination or whether it's like in a more of like a biblical or supernatural sense, it's actually like a real demon. Sometimes that can make you see, you're like attracting that negativity. Because negativity in itself obviously isn't supernatural, it's real. The actual visual representations of these things, obviously now that's way more up for debate. But I think regardless of whether it's hallucination or not, as I said,
it's the impact of it. That's in
my head. I felt like it was there.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. So
and
it's real or not.
I felt like I could almost like see the outline of it, but at the same time I know that I was in like essentially a pitch black room. So it doesn't. So there's a bit of like a contradiction.
And your brain
there.
is so powerful. Think you can like dream, and you can create. Your mind can create full epic storylines of dreams that you don't even realize.
Do you remember I told you what bothered me most about that whole experience?
That you weren't even bothered about it.
Yeah. That's the thing that hit me.
You felt numb towards it.
That's what caused me to have an epiphany. Because if you get into such a dark space in your head where something like that doesn't bother you, then that shows that you've got a freaking issue. Do you know what I mean?
There's this other cool thing.
And then afterwards, when we did the Peter Gibbs mystery, and it was like that, and that was like that, I felt like I had that moment.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Like, even though it was like a real funny, like, and obviously like humorous thing that we did, when we played that music and that's basically what I felt like had happened to me afterwards. I felt like I had this massive epiphany.
A weight had been lifted.
And I felt like I'd had this epiphany. Not necessarily a weight had been lifted, like a massive shift. And I had an epiphany. If you look up the definition of the word epiphany, you'll know what I mean. It's like a sudden moment of massive realization, but almost like overwhelming.
Overwhelming realization that changes your life forever from that point.
And then I went from almost like being negative in my mindset to instantly positive, and then everything in my head shifted. So like I almost like almost like in a split second, just massively changed, massively changed, and then I just thought, right, like I need to sort myself out, and then I just slowly just went about completely sorting myself out.
Thinking about like how like darkness and that can gather power, like you were saying a bit earlier, I just remind me of another story from this book. So this guy that got the heart transplant, he was talking about a pastor that he met on a plane, and this pastor started speaking to him. And he was a man of the church then, but he was telling him about his previous life, which was basically like he was this super high flyer guy that created a business that was like nursing homes, right? But he didn't care about anyone that he was putting in these nursing homes. He was just like trying to stuff as many in as he could to get as more money that he could. And he said it worked. Like he like created this empire of like nursing homes and that, and got all this money, and like had his own mansion like up in the woods and stuff like that. And he said from day to day he could see himself like creating more power, but that power wasn't necessarily positive. It was like negative. And he said at the height of it, and he said he was doing loads of blow and loads of like drinking and stuff like that. And he said he used to get every night, he used to live on his own in this mansion, and every night he said he went out into the forest, and he just realised if he silenced his mind and just looked into the forest and looked out into the darkness, like he could actually like control the darkness. And he said he started like gathering all the darkness in the woods, and he said he would do it for hours every night on his own, just like gathering all this darkness and this power that was like in that form. And he said it was like, and he'd do it. And what happened, he said it was almost like the darkness started using him like to corrupt him and create this power, but that wasn't good for the world. It was just like good for him and good for the darkness,
manipulating him.
Yeah, and he said, well, his epiphany was he went out on this boat. He had this yacht and stuff, and went out to this into these rocks on a really hot day, and was doing loads of blow and drinking loads on the yacht, and then and he overdosed, and he said he lied there, and it was almost like this was like at the peak of his like experience of that whole thing, and he said he passed out. And he just and he knew he overdosed. He thought, "Oh, I'm gonna die now." And and he passed out. And then about 6 hours later, he just kind of like woke up, and he was completely burnt all over his body because he was just in some pants or whatever, and he was like on the verge of death.
Whoa.
And like called in a thing, got saved and stuff like that. But he said that was his like moment of change. Is like he had to like nearly die, and he said it felt like the darkness had just like used him. And then just ate him up and thrown him away. It was like it was almost like that was the point where it discarded him, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
And then he then he became a man of God, and then he became like a pastor, and he just ran this thing. But he told this story to this guy who was getting the heart transplant, and I was like, that like blew me away about like like the dark powers that could manifest through just like.
Do you know what I think's a bit of a shame about that one though? Is that it's almost like in a way he didn't realise and make the change himself. It was like the darkness was done with him.
Yeah.
And then he made the change. That's almost like that's the one sad thing I take from that story.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said it like just ate him up and discarded him.
Like an abusive relationship. Just discarded.
Can he use you? Yeah, you'll get a nice house and you'll get all his, and all that stuff.
I love the story of Tyson Fury's like epiphany. I don't know if you guys have heard this story before.
Was that when he was like racing in a car?
Basically, he of course became heavyweight champion, which was his like number one life goal. And then as soon as he did it, he, retired, was like, you know what, I've completed my number one life goal. I've worked my entire life to do this thing. And he said the morning after he did it was the most depressed he ever felt in his entire life because his whole purpose was gone. And he then just went on to drink himself and drug himself into this pit which he went into. He was extremely overweight, mentally really unhealthy, and just brought himself to this point where he decided the only thing to do was for him to commit suicide. So he got in his car and he was going down, I think it was a motorway, it may have been in America, I think it was just a road,
highway,
and was going like
ridiculous miles an hour.
Yeah, ridiculous miles an hour, with the only purpose of himself ending his life that day.
He said he was just going to drive into the wall or something, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he
said going like 130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's like a brick wall.
He said when he was doing this, he had this almost epiphany where he heard God's voice.
Yeah, because he's really Christian now, isn't he?
Yeah, God's voice spoke to him and said, you don't want to do this, go back, you've got a family,
you've got kids,
you've got a wife. And he went back, obviously, and that was the point where he decided he was going to get fit again, challenge for the boxing fights again, where obviously he came back and then became the world heavyweight champ.
Came and fought
Deontay. Fought Deontay, got pretty well, did get knocked out, but then got back up.
It was a draw the first fight, and then he won the second one. Yeah,
crazy. And then obviously now he's like you said, a huge Christian, like thanks his life for God whenever he achieves anything. He's always thankful to God. I just thought that's a really good story.
Like with the amount of experiences that people have with some kind of higher power and like some kind of voice that speaks to them, or like that I say about it, that thing that I had when I was on LSD. That's actually what my new song's about. Actually, that experience, and it is that there was this miraculous event that happened that I can't explain, that I knew to me was true. Yeah, that like I felt as I felt as real as holding this in my hand.
And that's what's important, the belief.
Yeah,
the belief is what's important.
And that's it. So it is, and then it's the effect that has on your life afterwards, the effect that it has on you in the moment that matters. It doesn't matter what is real and not real.
I read this really interesting study, and that's exactly what we were saying. When I said it's the belief that's important, not whether technically there is a God or not. And it was basically it took all the athletes, like Olympic athletes, right, throughout the world into like one big study, or at least all the ones that were willing to be, give the information. And basically all they had to answer are you religious or not, right? And in general, all of the ones that were religious were far more successful than the athletes that weren't. And what they took away from that is basically when you feel like there's a higher power guiding you, or that maybe that you feel like they are giving you that power, or that they have given you this purpose, that will, in the real world, like physically, and athletes are so good to monitor for stuff like this because it's very easy to
to measure someone's success.
To measure physicality.
Yeah.
You know, you will literally perform physically better, whether it's speed, strength, whatever, jumping, as long as you believe that there is a higher power guiding you, or that they have given you that power, or that they have, they're giving you strength. And it could not just even be that they have given you the strength. It's even like during your training, they feel, they are giving you that power to train.
I would say even like what we were saying earlier in the episode about like purpose and that strength of that purpose. When you feel like you have purpose, like to do something, it just feels so good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think
100%,
if you're like
100%.
religious, or you do believe that there is that like higher power that almost could be like working through you to like for you to be your best self and stuff, then that's like a beautiful purpose. You know what I mean? And it's like,
for these people, it's like that's the highest level of purpose you can have, isn't it? To believe that the ultimate creator is the one that is once you're in his plan.
When I was a little kid, I don't so much now. It's not that I don't either, but I just don't really. I always used to pray when I was little, even though I've never really been religious. I wasn't praying to God or to Jesus, but I would just pray in general.
Yeah.
And I always had faith. You know when they say about like having faith, I've always had faith, and I do to an extent nowadays as well. Maybe maybe it's almost a shame. I think maybe I've lost it a little bit. Sometimes I could be a bit more cynical nowadays. But I always had faith, and I would always pray.
The majesty and faith.
And I almost like thought that I was like put on the planet for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's like it's a pretty vulnerable thing to admit that, but like I truly believe that.
Yeah.
And it's
weird, isn't it?
And when you do believe that, I feel like it does give you almost like a strength. A strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because at the same time, I am quite a skeptical person. I'm not close.
And it's something that people could say, what? Like, what are you on about?
Yeah.
Like, but
you're just born.
If you have that, then you could do better stuff.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. Like,
I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
I know my ex found it weird when we went to Barcelona and we went to Sagrada Familia, and I remember being there. And whenever I go to these places of worship, I always make a point,
especially grand ones like that, like massive cathedrals.
Exactly. But even so for example, when we went to Zante with my friends, there was this little shed, and it was just in the middle of nowhere, pretty much, this little shed, and it just had like all these candles that you could light, and these paintings of, I believe it was Jesus. I can't quite.
Yeah, probably.
It could have been some
Spain are Catholic Christians.
Yeah, I think it was Jesus, but I made the point of going in, lighting a candle, and just, I feel like whenever I go to any of those places, for example, if I go to a cathedral, if I go to Sagrada Familia, I always sit down and I just have a little prayer, and I just think it's nice to keep in touch with that side of yourself. Whether that's something which, for me personally, I definitely don't follow my whole life with the thing of, God wants me to do this, but I think it is nice to be in touch with that side.
Yeah, it's like keeping all doors open.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think as well, like the cool thing about that, and like churches and things like that, like they can mean whatever they want to anyone. So you can do that as an act of like your own faith, like, or do you know what I mean? Like an act is it's the way that you have that connection with it. That's like thing. And if it makes they're very physical things, like those cathedrals and that. Like I do, I'm in like.
They're amazing.
And it's like you don't have to get like tied up in a certain thing about like religion or like how
you don't need to believe that like this is Jesus' or God's.
You have your own connection, and that's just a physical representation of how you can be like.
And if that makes your life better, and it makes you not just happier for yourself, but a better human being to the people around you,
and that's the important thing.
Then what's more important than that?
How can you be a better human being? And that was that thing with these NDEs. Like no one ever like a lot of them don't. Because this guy with the heart, I know I keep bringing it up from this book, his family was like staunch Catholics. And saying like his whole idea of like what God was, or what like Jesus would be, or like hell, and his brother Frosty had, like, cool name, had committed suicide, and in their faith, like if you commit suicide, you're going to hell. But like his first and the first thing that came to him was Frosty, and it was like, oh man, tell him I messed up, dude, and like as in like, but I'm in a good place now, like there's nothing to worry about, please take this message back to my daughter, please take this, he had this experience with like Frosty, but in his idea of like Catholicism or Catholicism, or he was Catholicism, he should have been in hell. You know, so then that made him question his own faith about like how it's been taught, like, you know.
Yeah, it's very strict.
Strictly, and
Catholics are very strict with it.
And then that's how he got this whole idea of like, you know, just positive, like create a positive impact in the world by doing something good that will have a ripple effect. Something bad will have a ripple effect.
It's a bit like we talked before, and remember I always say that I like to think of it in my head as like momentum, like positive or negative momentum. So you build up enough momentum in one, and it's very hard to stop. So the idea is obviously you build up enough momentum with the positivity that you don't hardly ever think negative thoughts.
Yeah, and like what we were saying about like discipline and stuff. It is. Yeah. It just brings it totally back to that. Like it's your choice to try.
And it can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, it really can.
If somebody really upsets you or pisses you off and it grinds your gears, do you know what I mean? Then it's like, but you know, you need to sort of just like, you know, try and get yourself back to baseline and just think about what's more important in life, you know, and things like that. You know, I said easier said than done sometimes.
Especially like when you're an emotional person. And it's like, I definitely feel like that.
Me and you are both emotional guys, you know what I mean? So it's going to be hard.
So if someone like annoys you or like, you know, you get in a bit of thing, it's like, God damn it.
You get like sometimes a bit wound up by it.
Yeah, got to figure out how to get back to baseline.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, we're almost at the end, but should we, I think, you know, in fitting with today's theme, I'm going to end with one fact, which is just mind-blowing. So I think it would be a good way to end.
Nice.
All right? So,
nice.
Prepare to be blown
away. I wish.
Right. The universe contains more planets than seconds that have passed since the Big Bang. To estimate how many planets there are in the universe, we will need three numbers. First, we need to estimate how many planets are for each star. So, for people that really aren't into astronomy, so our star is obviously the sun. Every sun has planets around it. So, you know, all Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they are all our suns or our stars' planets. So first we need to estimate how many planets are for one star. Secondly, we need to estimate how many stars there are in the galaxy. Thirdly, we need to estimate how many galaxies there are in the universe. Professor Ethan Siegel and Assistant Professor David Kipping took up this challenge and tried to determine the number of planets there are in space. Obviously, it's hard to give a precise number, so we should stick to the absolute pessimistic scenario in each of these three variables. So basically, we're being very conservative with the estimates.
It's ever growing, isn't it, space?
Yeah. New studies from 2016 have shown that there are at least 2 trillion galaxies, not planets, galaxies, 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. According to scientists, the number of stars in the Milky Way ranges from 100 to 400 billion. That's just in the Milky Way. Other galaxies have much, much more, and others less. David Kipping assumes a pessimistic scenario according to which one planet would correspond to one star, which obviously most have far more like ours. Let's assume that there is in fact only one planet per one star. Let's assume that the average number of stars in the galaxy is only 1 billion. Let's assume that there are only 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. So what is the number of planets? It actually comes out to 26 tillions, okay? So that is an insanely high amount. I expect a lot of people have never even heard of a sextillion before. So basically, that means that how many seconds have passed since the Big Bang? The Big Bang happened 3.8 billion years ago. And each year contains 31,536,000 seconds. That's just in a year. Okay? So obviously, 26 tillions is like an income. You can't even comprehend it really as a human being. So, and that's the pessimistic scenario. So even if we take a pessimistic scenario, there are still much more planets in space than there have been seconds since the very creation of our universe. And that is how many. That's just how vast space.
That's cool. That's crazy.
We will leave it on that earth-shattering revelation. Cheers for tuning with us this week, everybody. We have been Pandora's Box.
What an epic episode.
You have been sexy.
So cool.
It's just nice, isn't it? Just exploring all these crazy things. Yeah, have a good one, everyone. This is Psychozar by Motorpsycho. We'll be back next week, and Chris Redjam will be with you shortly.